Hello and welcome to the September 2025 edition of the Soul Briefing. I'm Marik von Rennenkampff. On September 9th, the House Task Force on the Declassification of Federal Secrets held a hearing on UAP. The hearing featured two Air Force veterans, an active duty Navy Senior Chief Petty Officer, and longtime investigative reporter George Knapp as witnesses. Now, we here at the Soul Briefing wish to commend the members of Congress for their serious, nuanced questioning, and in particular, Task Force Chairwoman Anna Paulina Luna of Florida for her tireless efforts, both seen and unseen, on this topic. Additionally, in light of recent political developments here in the United States, we wish to acknowledge the bipartisan nature of this topic, this hearing, and in particular, a brief exchange between Task Force Ranking Member Jasmine Crockett of Texas and Chairwoman Luna, two members of Congress who could not be further apart politically. At the conclusion of the hearing, Crockett and Luna demonstrated genuine, refreshing unity and bipartisanship. And additionally, as is now common at such hearings, frequent sustained applause breaks from the at-capacity crowd of public attendees, punctuated witnesses' responses, and lawmaker commentary and questioning. Now, to the witnesses. Former Air Force military police officer Jeffrey Nuccetelli described extraordinary multi-witness UAP incidents at Vandenberg Air Force Base, a critical missile and defense facility in Southern California. Nuccetelli's testimony aligns squarely with decades of meticulously documented incursions at the U.S. government's most sensitive sites, to include alarming incidents over nuclear weapons facilities dating back to the 1940s. Viewers are strongly encouraged to review Robert Hastings' superb book on this issue, UFOs and Nukes, for more information. Active duty U.S. Navy Senior Chief Petty Officer Alexandro Wiggins, with 23 years of service to his name, described a 2023 incident aboard the USS Jackson, an advanced U.S. Navy warship off the coast of San Diego. In this incident, a capsule-shaped object emerged from the ocean and joined a formation of three others, which all then departed with, quote, synchronized near instantaneous acceleration, end quote. Infrared video footage from the event shows two objects lacking wings, a tail, or obvious means of propulsion flying in perfect formation. They maintain the exact same separation throughout the course of the video. Now, importantly, based on the data and the footage, we know that the objects were traveling laterally, sideways to the camera. In military infrared footage, and I cannot stress this enough, planes and drones do not appear capsule or tic-tac shaped. Wings, a tail, engines, an exhaust plume would all typically be visible. Now, the 2023 incident bears some fascinating parallels to the well-known 2004 USS Nimitz Tic Tac UFO events, which in no small part helped spur current congressional and government interest and focus on UAP. In 2004, sailors aboard the USS Princeton, a guided missile cruiser, tracked groups of objects that appeared on their radar scopes in the vicinity of San Clemente Island, just off the coast of San Diego, and then moved south at oddly slow speeds. And in what is now one of the best-known contemporary UAP incidents, the Princeton directed two Navy FA-18 fighter jets to investigate these unknown contacts. The four naval aviators in those two jets, 8 trained eyeballs in all, observed a capsule-shaped object performing extraordinary maneuvers before departing at rapid speeds. A follow-on flight following the incident captured video of a tic-tac shaped craft, which, intriguingly, once the data in the video is analyzed geometrically, cannot be a plane. Now, the 2023 incident described by Chief Wiggins during the hearing has intriguing parallels to those 2004 incidents. Both involved multiple capsule-shaped objects moving south and departing at extreme speeds, and in the 2023 incident occurred in the immediate vicinity of San Clemente Island, just where those radar tracks emerged on the scopes of the USS Princeton in 2004. Former Air Force intelligence analyst Dylan Borland described a bizarre 2012 incident where a large, quote, equilateral triangle, end quote, hovered soundlessly directly over him at Langley Air Force Base in Virginia before rapidly ascending to, quote, commercial jet level, end quote. Borland alleges that he was subsequently exposed to, quote, classified information from the UAP legacy retrieval program, end quote, and faced retaliation after speaking to the Pentagon's UAP analysis office and the Intelligence Community Inspector General, the internal watchdog that oversees the nation's spy agencies. Borland's alleged encounter with an enigmatic black triangle aligns squarely with other UAP reported to the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. In an interview with the New York Post Stephen Greenstreet, for example, AARO's former deputy director, Timothy Phillips, stated that he personally remains baffled by UAP incidents involving, quote, black triangles, end quote. Pretty remarkable admission from a former government official tasked with investigating UFOs. Witnesses have also described seemingly identical craft down to the lighting configuration described by Borland for decades. We here at the Soul Briefing strongly recommend consulting David Marler's superb book, Triangular UFOs, An Estimate of the Situation, for more on this. Now, intriguingly, Langley Air Force Base, the site of Borland's alleged incident, saw nearly 3 weeks of remarkably brazen nightly incursions by unknown quote-unquote drones in late 2023. These mysterious objects somehow resisted all attempts to jam and disable them. And despite the deployment of a NASA aircraft with highly specialized imaging equipment, no detailed imagery of the objects has emerged publicly. At the same time, the late UAP researcher Leonard Stringfield reported on allegations of, quote, secret UFO research operations, end quote, involving retrieved craft at Langley Air Force Base as far back as the late 1970s. For more, we recommend reviewing Stringfield's status reports 1 through 7. Investigative reporter George Knapp was arguably the star witness of Tuesday's hearing. Knapp's opening statement and answers to lawmakers' questions span the 4 decades of his reporting on the topic, to include spiriting sensitive UAP documents out of post-Soviet Russia and naming individuals allegedly involved with the secret UFO and reverse engineering, quote, legacy program that is outlined in pending congressional legislation. Knapp also described how the Pentagon's UFO analysis office, under the leadership of its former director, seemed to function as a, quote, counterintelligence operation, end quote, that collected information and subsequently discredited whistleblowers and witnesses. Now, as an aside, I spoke to AARO's former director twice about the well-known gimbal video. In both instances, he told me that the object was a balloon reflecting sunlight. Now, for anyone familiar with the case, this is simply impossible. The incident occurred at night, and multiple sophisticated geometrical reconstructions of the incident using the on-screen data find no plausible balloon trajectory. Not to mention that the aircrew quite literally state they are all going against the wind. The wind is 120 knots as they observe the gimbal object and several others accompanying it on their radar screens.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude.
We'll leave it to Soul Briefing viewers to draw their own conclusions about how the former director of the government's UFO analysis office characterized what is arguably the most recognizable publicly available UAP footage. But again, major kudos to George Knapp for his superb testimony and for his decades of relentless work on the UAP topic. Now, alarmingly, in a discussion with Soul Foundation co-founder Dr. Peter Skafish just days before the hearing, Chairwoman Luna stated that several military and government contractor witnesses declined to testify because they were, quote, scared for their life, end quote. This is not the first time that lawmakers have made references to threats or retaliation against UAP whistleblowers. In an eyebrow-raising 2023 interview, then Vice Chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, Marco Rubio, stated that individuals who spoke to Congress behind closed doors about UAP fear, quote, harm coming to them, end quote, and alarmingly are, quote, fearful of ever commenting because they think it's punishable by death, end quote. During the Soul Foundation's 2024 symposium, 37-year veteran congressional staffer Kirk McConnell, who held the highest security clearances as a senior Senate Armed Services and Intelligence Committee staff member, recalled speaking with a source who was physically shaking with fear at the prospect of revealing what he knew about UAP. Senator Mike Rounds, who sits on both the Senate Armed Services and Intelligence Committees, and who is a lead co-sponsor of the UAP Disclosure Act, which is sponsored by Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, echoed these comments in a July interview. According to Rounds, quote, brilliant, quote, capable individuals who have no incentive to mislead lawmakers have described extraordinary technologies that have not been reported to Congress as required by law and fear retaliation. As one of the few issues drawing sustained bipartisan support on Capitol Hill, it is our view here at the Soul Briefing that Congress must act decisively on the wealth of credible and alarming witness and whistleblower testimony that it has received in recent years. It must, in short, pass the UAP Disclosure Act. In one of the more attention-grabbing moments of the hearing, Congressman Eric Burlison of Missouri presented new UAP footage. While we cannot stress enough that this footage may very well be debunked or otherwise explained away by the Pentagon in the near future, and that analysis of the data in the video is currently very, very preliminary, we would be remiss if we did not point out that there are several truly intriguing oddities and anomalies in the footage. First, by way of a brief explanation, the footage, according to Congressman Burlison, was recorded by the infrared camera aboard an MQ-9 Reaper drone off the coast of Yemen on October 30th, 2024. In the video, a white oblong object appears to move rapidly over the water. The drone that recorded the video fires a targeting and ranging laser at the object while another drone fires a missile at it. The missile fails to detonate, but it does knock the object off course as three smaller objects appear to emerge from the large UAP. In a wide shot following the missile strike, the object appears to continue traveling with the smaller objects occasionally visible alongside it. At various points in the video, telemetry and other data are visible, and this includes camera angles and, importantly, the laser-derived range, a very, very accurate measure from the drone to the UAP and from the drone to the ocean below. Now, these values allow us to establish the altitudes of both the object and the drone. The drone, as it turns out, is at roughly 24,500 feet, and the object is at roughly 12,000 feet. This means that much of the perceived motion that we see, that ocean ripping by in the background, is from parallax, an optical illusion, and the object is, in fact, moving rather slowly. And on that note, it should be noted that the skeptical community seems to have coalesced around the theory that the object is a balloon. This is not only due to the parallax effect, but also because the infrared signature shows a very well-defined oblong object lacking wings, control surfaces, a tail, propulsion, or an exhaust plume, all of which are, again, visible in other military infrared video of drones and aircraft, including in grainier footage recorded from much further away.
Now, let's briefly dive into some of the oddities and anomalies that have emerged from a preliminary analysis of the video, which on their face at least seem to conflict with the balloon theory. First, the object rotates, and this is perhaps most apparent when the footage is sped up, as we see here. Now, intriguingly, the rotation begins almost immediately after the drone fires its ranging and target designating laser, which is what the missile zeroes in on as it flies towards the object. The object then appears to stop or slow its rotation just before the missile strikes. Now, we'll leave it to viewers to draw their own conclusions about this motion. Next, the smaller objects that appear to follow the large UAP. Intriguingly, after the missile strikes, these objects appear to emerge sequentially, one by one, from the larger object. This, to our eye at least, seems inconsistent with debris being ripped off following a kinetic strike by a missile traveling at the speed of sound or greater. But as always, we are certainly open to other interpretations. Of equal interest is that the objects have identical infrared signatures, as seen here, with image polarity reversed for better contrast. Now, having reviewed a considerable amount of infrared footage in our analyses in recent years, we have found no infrared artifacts that match what is observed here, including these small protrusions. But as always, we are open to new data and evidence. Ultimately, the odds that any three random pieces of debris from a balloon would have identical shapes and infrared signatures seems vanishingly small, and the odds that they would retain such identical shapes as they move around and shift in the wind is likely even lower.
Perhaps most intriguingly, the smaller objects can be seen in close proximity to the larger object 30 seconds after the missile strike. Now, for reference, following the February 2023 shootdown of the Chinese surveillance balloon off the U.S. East Coast, debris separated rapidly from the deflated balloon envelope as it fell to the ocean. While, again, we are always open to different interpretations, we find it exceedingly unlikely that any three random pieces of balloon debris would have identical infrared signatures, especially as they are in motion in winds aloft, and that such objects would remain in such close proximity to a deflated balloon envelope for such a long period of time. Now, we're also aware that there may be as much as 5 minutes of additional footage from this incident, which is interesting. And additionally, it should be noted that the object, based on its thermal signature, is very, very hot, much hotter than the ocean surface 12,000 feet below it. While we will let viewers draw their own conclusions, we find that the observable anomalies in this footage make it worthy of further rigorous analysis.